Hello everybody. This is a short video going over some more methods, and in this one I am actually going to show the use of a method where I am going to return some value as well as accept some values. I had already done another video showing you a simple method where you wrote methods without any arguments and also with an argument. So hopefully with this one we would be able to wrap up the chapter, and also this is going to be helpful in doing your assignment that I will ask you to do. So let's go through this program. Let me first show the the line numbers. So what I'm trying to do over here is I am trying to write a program which is going to be helping people in making some decisions on investments versus spending or buying something with a loan where you are actually paying interest, and it can be applied across the board. For example, if any of you all would think about investing any money, and then you can think about using something like this, an application like this, which shows you what would be your investment amount, and if you gain any interest, or if they would perform. I mean, let's say apply towards maybe a stock market where you buy some fund or buy some stocks, and it would give you a certain percentage of return, and if you do not take the money out, it would add on. Basically it would gather, or it would accumulate the compound interest, and then after 2 or 3 years you would have a certain amount of money. So this is going to be the compound interest, and I just wrote this one and kind of made it up. So what I'm doing here is, first of all, I'm using the scanner because I want to take some values in. I want to make this thing interactive. Then I have a public class, and I said investment decision. Okay, I just named this class, and then I have a main method, main string, and look what I have inside it. I'm just trying to show you different formats, different example. In this case, I just have a system.out.printf, and I am using this formatting, which is .2f, okay, and then comma. So instead of using a plus, I'm using a comma because this is my first argument, which shows me, or which tells me, which allows me to put in the formatting, and then in the next argument I'm actually calling in a method, okay, and the method name is called balance, which is my method right here, and inside I am putting in some parameters, but this is just showing that I am using these values, which is going to be 0.0. So these are all double values. So this is just the format I am throwing in. Okay, so this is another way of calling in a function like this, where you do not want to put in any arguments as to your principal or rate like this. You just put in something like this, because if you look at the function or the method itself, it actually calculates it. Okay, so that's what I'm doing, balance, and then I have to put in 3 arguments, and all of them are double, so I'm just passing in 0.0, 0.0, and 0.0. Now I write my method, and again, this is a public method, it's static, and it is going to return a value. Okay, now previously you have always seen no return or voids, but this one is going to return some value. Okay, and then this is the identifier or the name of the method, and then it has some arguments, and I have to spell out what kind of data types it's going to accept. So all of these are double, double, and double, and of course these are my identifiers. So this 0.0 that I am putting in over here, it's actually coming in as a principal. Okay, although you will see that inside my method, I'm actually asking people to input their investment amount or the rate. So now this is my principal, this is my rate, and this is my years. And I have a variable that I defined as amount, and I initialize the value as 0. This is something that you have seen before. That's my input object. And then I come up with statements for them to input. Enter the initial investment amount. I take the value in using next double and store it in my variable called principal. Okay, and enter my interest rate. So this is my principal. So this is what I had. This is my formal parameter that I had. So, but in this case, I'm actually storing the value in my principal. I'm asking for an interest rate, and this is next double, and then I'm asking for the number of years. Now, when I input the interest rate, and I could have made this thing a little clear. Please input decimal. Example, 5% is 0.05. Okay, just to show how to input that value. I have made this comment on some of the programs that I have seen so far, where people are just saying enter a value and they are not specifying, enter a phone number. They do not specify if it is a number that is separated by a dash or a slash or any of that. And this is an interest rate. So when I ask user to input an interest rate, I do not want to say 9%, because you need to convert that to a decimal, which is going to be 0.09. So that's why I give them the feedback. And then enter the number of years, and then I input my years, and then I have my amount, my interest. Actually, I don't need this over here because my amount is being calculated. Now, this is a formula that I'm using. Okay, this is the formula to calculate my compound interest. Okay, which is principal times math dot power. So I'm using a power, and this is just coming from a math library. So math dot power. And then this is 1.0 because you're adding it to the principal. This is my rate, okay, and this is my years. So 1.0 plus rate, comma, years. So this is something that comes directly from a compounding formula, okay. Of course, this is my amount, and if I want to find out how much interest I got, so I'm just going to say interest is equals amount minus principal. So this is my entire amount, and then whatever I had for principal, if I deduct that, this is my interest. So let's try to compile this file. And oops. All right, so now I got, well, I actually deliberately left it like this because I wanted to show some of the debugging. Now, it comes and tells me that it cannot find symbol interest, because that's true, because I never defined interest anywhere here. So let's go ahead and define double interest, because I kind of made this thing up because I wanted to return my interest. And then it says, let's compile it again, and wow, I got lucky. So that was the only problem I had. I did not define interest before, so I just came back and defined. So let's run this program now, and it says enter initial investment amount. So I say I want to invest $500. Okay, enter the interest rate. Please input decimals. So let's say I get and actually I should have put a space in there. Let's say for example, S&P returned about 16%. So 16 is going to be 0.16. And then said enter the number of years, and I said okay, I want to keep that money in for 5 years. Okay, so now it returns my interest right here. Okay, now if I want to return my total amount, okay, I could just change, instead of returning my interest, I could just return my amount over here, so that it tells me how much my total amount is going to be. And let me do this right here to give it some space, and let me compile this. Okay, so now I have the same program, enter the initial amount, and I say 500, and my interest rate is 0.16, and my number of years is going to be 5, and here you go. With my $500 investment, I have now made 1,050, and that's where actually the power of compounding comes in, because the very first time from 500, if you add 16% to it, so that's 500 some $30. Let's see, 1.16 times $580, and then you leave that money in, and then you add another 16% on top of that. That's how it goes on. But again, this is just something very simple. It really doesn't work like that, because 16% is an unusually high percentage or return to get back. So it may be 16% the first time, 9% the next time, and then you have to come in and change something in the formula to show you that if it returns 16 the first year, this is how much you get. If you return 9 the next year, this is how much you get. But again, simple use of a method here, and which is returning some value. Okay, now let's try to add in, because I wanted to show you the comparison, and that's why I kind of named the file investment decision, where I am actually showing you the calculation of a compound interest. But let's look at a simple interest. Sometimes when we borrow money, let's say I want to buy a car, and I borrow money from the bank or from the car dealership, and I said, okay, I want to buy a car for $500, and my rate of interest that I have to pay is going to be 5%. Okay, so then you can calculate that to see how much money you will be paying at the end of 5 years, because generally those things are loaned out for 3 years to 5 years. And then as for the assignment, I'm going to ask you to write an application, and I can call it investment decision, where you have to tell, or you have to write some program where you can see how much money you're going to return, or how much money you're going to get if you invest, if you make the decision to invest. And you have to ask the user what kind of principal, what kind of rate, and how many years you want to keep it for, versus if you want to make a decision to purchase something where you're still paying money with simple interest, and how much you will end up paying. Okay, and with this program you should be able to put these two things together and come up or write the program. Okay, so let me show you how to bring in or write another one which just calculates the simple end. So let's write a simple interest method, and I'm going to bring it over here. So right after my balance, or I can probably call it public start double compound interest. Actually, let me change it from balance to compound interest investment, and then I'm just going to use this one over here, because now I'm not calling it balance anymore. I'm going to call it compound interest investment. And then I just wrote something which is a calculate simple interest, and in this case I'm also going to accept 3 parameters: principal, time, and rate. And inside my block body, or inside the body of my method, I am calculating the principal and the interest. So I basically have an interest, and the way you do the do the calculation is you take the principal times the number of years times rate, and I don't really need the 100, divide that by 100. If I had done that, then I could have left the rate as integer. So what I'm saying is this, well, yeah, I could have left that as an integer, and then I could have come in over here and divided the rate by 100. So if somebody would put in 9%, that would divide that by 100 to make it 0.09. But you know, since I changed this one to double, I'll just leave it as times rate. So then the double amount is going to be principal plus interest, okay? And then I'm outputting where my interest is and what my amount is, okay? Now let's see how I can use this calculate simple interest into my program. So inside my main, okay, I have to take some of these values. So the way I'm going to do this is define my scanner system just like I did over here. Okay, it's just a different way of accepting the values. So let me bring in what I had written. Okay, so I wrote a scanner input inside my main, and then I created a start amount, a year, and an interest rate, and I'm asking the question inside the main and then calling this method and passing the variables that I have collected inside my main. Okay, so this is just another way of writing my method. So now instead of this method that I had gone over initially, this one is just taking the values that I'm passing through as principal, time, and rate, and multiplying all this and then returning my system out. Now remember that this one is a void, so I'm not returning anything at the end, whereas in this one, in the previous program, I was returning a value. So let me see, let me show you how that works. Okay, so this is going to compound interest initial. Let's say system out. I don't want to put in investment. Let's enter the initial loan amount, let's say. Okay, because really when you look at in this scenario, let's say you want to buy a car and you want to take some loan, and they are generally calculated with an interest rate, a simple interest rate. So now let's compile this. And it gave me some errors over here. I do not know how I had this 2 over here. So let me get rid of the 2. And now let's run it. Okay, let me make this thing a little bigger. All right, enter the initial investment amount. Now remember, I did not make a lot of changes in the wording. So the first thing that is happening is the program starts from the main. Okay, and then inside my main it says system out printf, and it's calling the compound interest investment. Okay, so immediately it is going to this compound interest investment, and that's where you have system out print enter the initial amount. Okay, so let's say I put in I'll use the same values. So let's say I put in $500. 500. Okay, then it says enter. See, that's where it was coming from, I think. Okay, then it says enter the interest rate, and so let's input the number, and let's say in this case I'm going to get 0.05. That's my return. 0.05. That's going to be my return that I can get. and then I want to invest it for, let's say, 5 years, and then my total is going to be 638.14, because remember I had changed my return to the amount, which means I do not want the interest only, I just want the amount. And then I'm going to come to this one, which is the loan amount, which is the one that I was kind of associating that when you buy a car, this is the amount of money that you are going to be spending. So initial loan amount, if you say 500, and your interest rate, let's say same thing, 5%, and the number of years, 5. So now look what you're doing. You are paying an interest of $125 on your 500, and you are ending up paying an amount of $625, versus when you could have invested that money with the same interest rate for the number of years, and you could have gotten back $638.14. So that's the difference between a simple interest and a compound interest. But before we end, let's take a look at how the program works. So now I have, in my main method, I have the scanner input when I'm taking all these values in, and then I'm calling this program, or this method, this method, and passing the values that I have collected in my main. Okay, so these are my values that I collected, interest rate, and stored it in interest rate, loan amount, start amount, and my year and year. And then calling this particular method, which takes in some arguments, but it does not return any value. Okay. However, when I look into this one, okay, I am calling this method, and I'm all doing it in one line, calling this method, but look, I am taking all these values inside this method. So I'm calling this method, which of course takes these 3 arguments, but my scanner and my input is inside the method, where I'm taking in the investment, taking the interest rate, and then returning a value. And depending upon what I want to return, you can only return one value. So depending upon what I want to return, it's either the interest or the amount. I'm returning it, and that is being shown right here. So it has been formatted, and that's why you have a 0.2 F, which means that you have 2 decimals at the end. So that's $638. So also another example showing how you write your methods and how you write a method which returns a value. Also show how you write a method which does not return a value but does take some arguments. Thank you.